RWBY, Volume 6, Episode 8, Dead End. What happens? We start the episode post-argument, where it's explained Atlas's borders are closed. Then the military base guards suddenly change their minds and decide the group is allowed to speak with their commanding officer, Caroline Cordovan. Maria mentions how Cordo hates her due to Maria's inability to follow the rules, just as Cordo shows up. We then spend about 2.5 minutes doing nothing as Cordo just says random shit, as opposed to actually explain why the kids aren't allowed in. Cordovan drops some mild racism and then just stops the conversation abruptly. Crow walks away to be a pouty pants elsewhere, and the kids jump cut into Saffron's house, where the girls retell Ozma's backstory. Juniper get angry upon hearing the off-screen recap, and Jean bullies Oscar a bit before the group separates. RWBY wanders outside to find Maria, who prompts her to sit down and learn about her eyes a bit, wherein Maria spends most of her speech telling RWBY her backstory and only barely touches on Silver Eyes. Yang interrupts the lesson to tell RWBY that Oscar's gone missing, and the episode finally ends. Writing this review is kind of difficult because this episode's a real drag. I'm letting you all know that I blatantly don't like this episode much. If you'd like to know why it prompts such ire from me, stick around, but if listening to me posit a good amount of complaints towards the show while explaining my reasoning doesn't sound fun to you, try another video then. Enough dilly-dallying though, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this. Why start the episode with the conclusion of an argument just to have it pick back up immediately? Yang's line of,
"Come on, you didn't even hear us out,"
must be really accurate, since it seems the guards simply saw the kids approach the gate and closed them out before letting them speak at all. It's just a clunky way to start the episode. These guards are dumb. I thought they were kinda funny at first, but they're overused so much over these last episodes of the volume that they swiftly become irritating. And on the topic of failed humor, this whole beginning scene of talking to Cordo is trying so hard to be funny and fails in almost every way. The jokes land about as well as Jean does, and the extended pauses for laughter being filled with utter silence makes everything last way too long. I spend half my time watching this scene thinking, fucking go already! And it's not great. How did the guards not notice Weiss? Why do they need her to get closer to make sure it's really her? Why does this bit have to take so damn long? How does Maria know it's Cordo who runs this place? Does she always have to go through the military base to get to Atlas? In that case, why didn't she mention she's utter rivals with the person they're trying to work with before now? And again, it takes so long for this joke of, "Are you friends? Are you acquaintances?" to happen, dragging its heels as the script pretends that having Maria yell is the same as being funny. The only tiny saving grace from this mind-numbingly dull scenario is one of the only successful jokes of the whole episode happens here.
Now, let's not give up hope yet. Maybe she's dead.
Does Roosterteeth not know how to make tall elderly women? Do something! Why is Maria trying to argue with Cordovan? You guys need to convince her you're cool so you can get to your destination. Now is not the time to try and win a dick measuring contest.
I've already heard what your other little friends had to say, Miss Rose.
How does Cordo know this group is connected to Ranger? She hadn't seen Jean, Ren, and Nora in the distance until after this line.
What are you doing back here? I thought I told you to leave!
And I told you we wouldn't rest until you let us through!
Nice to see you again as well.
Presenting the only other good joke of the episode. Honestly, based on this small interaction, I think it would have been way more fun to see Ranger try and talk to Cordo instead of this slog that we're stuck with.
This base, that relay tower, the very safety of Argus are all gifts from the glorious kingdom of Atlas. And it is my duty to uphold them, as only I have the wit and tenacity for such a task.
I just showed you one of the stupidest moments in all of RWBY history. Now let's break it down. First, if this base and that relay tower are so important, why aren't we looking at them? We're stuck watching Cordo because of no good reason. Second, this line has nothing to do with anything in the conversation at hand. RWBY asks to have Cordo listen to their request. Cordo says she's already heard the request from Ranger. Cordo says she'll explain why she's refusing using simple words, and then she just tells the audience what her job is. Protecting Argus is in no way brought up and has nothing to do with the heroes trying to get to Atlas. And this tendency to just have Cordo sputter out random bullshit to force the necessary events into happening continues throughout the rest of the conversation. Almost nothing she says could be interpreted as a valid response to whatever the heroes say.
Please, we know your kingdom had nothing to do with the fall of Beacon.
Atlas is strong. If all the kingdoms plan to make us their enemy, then so be it! Atlas will prevail!
Cutting out the filler lines about Ironwood being scared used to prompt Cordo's rant makes it clear how her lines are totally unrelated to whatever is said to her. No one said they want to make an enemy of Atlas. Nothing has happened to prompt this idea from Cordo. It's just like the end of their argument. Whites can come, but we don't want her smelly friends.
What's that supposed to mean?
It means we're done here.
No! Weiss could still agree to go to Atlas. Cordo could actually shut the fuck up for a sec and let Crow explain what's going on. But instead of writing a script that actually flowed in a natural way, RT decided that this scene needs to be done now and just have Cordo evacuate the screen as abruptly as possible, without taking the time to give the conversation a sense of believability at all.
Oh yeah? Well, your face looks like a big dumb boot!
Literally no? Like, I wish I could agree with Nora, but I just cannot see it. Jean, what an asshole! Saffron has to pay for that! And what the hell could have possibly prompted Jean to get so pissy that he punches a wall? All of Ranger are acting like they just heard Ruby tell them they've been tricked into doing evil deeds all this time. How is everything they've done all for nothing? Saving the small village, killing the Knuckleavi, keeping the lamp away from the meanie villains? All for nothing? Just because Salem can't be destroyed? Are you only helping people so you can arbitrarily save the day from the bad guy and not to simply help people live better lives? I don't want to be a hero unless I go down in history as the winner. Jean, Ren, and Nora are all doing the same hive mind hatred of Ozpin that Ruby had done back in episode 4, and it's just as stupid and annoying here as it was then, except now it's got the added level of bullcrap of Jean has to get a moment to yell about trust, because of course it has to be Jean that gets a moment. Ren and Nora are just accessories for our center stage drama queen.
Salem can't be killed. Then how are we supposed to win this?
Great plan, everyone.
Bitch, you're the strategist. What's the point of having this dumbass "can we even trust you" tantrum? Is it just because Miles and Carrie saw that happen in other shows and so figured we gotta put that in our show too? The fact that the group tends to treat Oscar like nothing more than a vessel for Ozpin is a constant issue that's never addressed. If you're gonna have the stupid "I can't trust you" scene where Jean realizes he's taking his anger out on the kid who had nothing to do with all this, have that fucking go somewhere, actually. The kids all need to learn that Ozpin and Oscar are different people and they can't keep treating the farm boy like shit. And I mean that like, there should be a scene dedicated to this, because otherwise it's just a randomly thrown around and dropped plot point. How come when Yang calls out Jean, he ignores her, but when Ruby does it, the room goes silent? Oh yeah, the writers bypass Ruby actually being important for the plot, and instead just give her the power to stop arguments. That's how you fix your forgotten protagonist, make them be the only character allowed to talk sense into people. And to top it all off, the whole scene is baffling, because Ruby, Weiss, Blake, and Yang are all trying to tell Ranger that it's not something to get worked up about, when the girls were literally behaving the same way one in-universe day ago.
There was so much you hadn't told us.
Did you already know about this?
What is your plan to defeat Salem?
Salem can't be killed. Then how are we supposed to win this?
How much longer can we even trust him?
He just left us?
What are we gonna do now?
Everything we did was for nothing!
That bastard!
We've been talking to that liar this whole time!
A bunch of hypocrites they all are. This is a very pretty set, with nice colors and lighting, and the butterflies are a delightful pop to the area. What a shame that isn't enough to distract me from how dull the conversation is.
You know, you don't give yourself enough credit. Oh, thanks. That wasn't a compliment.
Yes, it is. The writers become obsessed this volume with having characters telling Ruby, and by proxy the audience, how great and amazing she is. Saffron and Tara did this last episode, and happens again later with Jin. Maria effectively says, "Ruby, you are the special protagonist. You will eventually be the one to save the day, even with the literally zero effort you put into the plot." Rather than having your cast try to convince the audience that your hero is the bee's knees, have her actually prove it.
Look, if I already knew everything, I wouldn't be asking for help.
You aren't asking for help. Maria told you to sit down for a lesson. You haven't asked for help in the years you've known about your eyes, despite having Crow and Ozpin at your disposal to ask for that help from. The idea of having Ruby finally learn about her damn eyes was really exciting when this episode first came out. We've been wanting to know about them since the 7-minute mark of the first episode. Now, 6 years later, we actually seem to be getting that info, but instead we waste 2 whole minutes on Maria's fucking backstory. I know about silver eyes. My dad had silver eyes. He wasn't called a huntsman though, just a soldier and a teacher. I was homeschooled, scored high on my SAT though. Dad thought I was a show-off. He also didn't know much about our eyes. I didn't want people to know about my eyes, but you already knew that. I could fight real good, remember? I already mentioned that too. Want to know what my semblance is? I don't give a shit about any of this! Talk about your damn eyes already! There's a time and a place for dropping your boring-ass backstory wiki pages on people, and the let's learn about the important MacGuffin conversation is not it. On that note, this sit down and spout my entire history to someone shit is hyper bad, and RT needs to learn not to do this anymore.
How could such powerful bloodlines be so rare unless something was actively seeking to destroy them?
Salem.
You're not the only one who wants Ruby dead, but unfortunately Salem does not feel the same way. I've been instructed not to kill her.
Something was actively seeking to destroy them.
Not to kill her.
Salem.
Salem does not feel the same way.
Salem.
I mentioned in the last review that preflexes really just seem to make Maria have to work harder than everyone else when it comes to blocking bullets. What I didn't mention is how, since everyone constantly moves at Mach speed and always seems to know how to dodge or reflect attacks perfectly, they've made Maria's semblance and ability the whole cast already seems to have anyway. Preflexes by themselves is not a bad idea, but the execution of it completely flops due to RT's choppy choreography quality. And after spending so much time wandering around the point of the scene, we finally start to talk about the silver eyes, just for Maria to tell us what we've already been able to figure out. It's a bunch of light and that scares away the darkness. Yeah. Learning that it's kinda connected to the god of light doesn't mean shit to us. We don't care about its origin, we care about how Ruby can control it and how it can help her in combat. Though I will say learning that it's triggered by the desire to protect life is nice to know. At least we know what turns the eyes on now. Though I can't help but question some moments because of this info. Did Ruby not want to protect Penny's life? Did she not care about protecting Yang's life? She wasn't worried about Ranger? There's a lot of moments that start to crumble a little when under such scrutiny, but I don't really feel like being a curmudgeon about this. While some scenes may now be a bit questionable, I'm willing to let it slide in the name of storytelling. But ultimately, the long-awaited explanation on what made Ruby's eyes so interesting to Ozpin boils down to the furthering of fleshing out the lore of Remnant. I get that Miles and Carrie seem really interested in filling out this world's history and stuff, but they need to know where that filling out is necessary. Ruby talks to Maria for 6 minutes, but between Maria's wiki summarization and the explanation of how Ruby's eyes are connected to the fancy religion Miles thought up, almost none of this is worthwhile for our story. This could have been a great moment for pushing Ruby further in her development, but the crew decided that this scene was better spent towards more world building. And it's just a pity. I thought you guys were grabbing something to eat. Where's the food, fam? And so, that was dead end. This episode is a waste of time. And it didn't have to be. Talking to Cordovan could have been a quick, concise breakdown of the kid's next obstacle, but got overloaded with failed comedy and a nonsensical script. The dialogue's either wasting your time or taking flying leaps to force the conflict into effect. It's a cringy, annoying way to spend almost 5 minutes of your life, and that scene's the best part of the episode. The Cordo crap is just the tip of this iceberg. The Jean freakout feels contrived and goes nowhere, as this conflict is totally resolved without any on-screen input from the characters, and the big learning about your eyes scene is just a sneakily hidden lore dump. The characters don't develop, the plot doesn't go anywhere, there's nothing interesting to look at, the script does its best to either annoy you or bore you, nothing of worth happens for the whole 15-minute runtime, and it's a shame because this volume suffers heavily from important things getting cut for time, and it's just mind-blowing that Yang and Blake's argument getting resolved was cut, and Oscar's outfit change development gets cut, but there's time to spend a whole episode on this shit? This volume's pacing is out of whack, and this episode is a giant stain on its runtime. In a world where RT didn't have the time to spare on superfluous extra stuff for this volume, they decided to completely waste one of their precious few episodes on doing nothing.
Don't forget to hold the button while targeting. I'm dead inside. What kind of monster could take a sweet child? Fucking monster, actually.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Yes, I'll just die alone.
I'll be back real soon. Wow, I'll be dead real soon.
If you're done talking to your soon-to-be-dead grandma.
Alright, I'm tired, and my back hurts, so I'm gonna nail every paragraph the first time, so I can drink a Red Bull and lie on the floor. Hopefully. Oh, fuck. Okay, we're good. I'm okay. I wonder if my neighbor can hear me. I wonder if she thinks I'm weird. If anything, having this ragtag group of fucks get to Atlas is protecting Argus. Get them out of my city. Here's the second reading for. I'm so tired.